Well, hello and welcome to episode number 100 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here as always with Michaela. As always with Michaela for 100 times now. Triple digits, we did it. Congratulations to us.
Congratulations to us. I'm so excited. I can't believe we've done that many movies. That means we've done 100 different movies. We've
Yeah.
done almost like 200 different drinks if you count all the lobby bar drinks. And of course, all the extras we've done. We've done a lot of drinking, a lot of movie watching, a lot of talking. This has been an amazing couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been. I did not have 100 episodes envisioned when we decided to start this, a couple years back, but here we are 100 episodes later and feeling fine. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us along this journey. And today we have something pretty special in store for everyone because we are wrapping up Halloween spooky movie month. With one of the all-time greatest films of all time, Silence of the Lambs. We're very excited to talk about it. But before we get into the movie, before we get into this week's cocktail, we're going to need an extra cocktail because this weekend is Halloween, trick-or-treating. Well, technically Halloween is on a Monday, which is the worst if you're a kid. You have to go to school on a Monday and then go trick-or-treating. Lame, super lame. But that's the world that we live in this year. But Michaela, you and your family are going to go trick-or-treating. You're going to get all the candy, and then you're going to go back to your house, and you're going to have an awesome cocktail for everyone. Maybe me. Maybe I'm just going to like crash your house while you're out getting all the candy and drink all your drinks. But what are we drinking Halloween night?
We are going to drink this cozy maple pumpkin bourbon cocktail with some apple cider in it. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be very festive. And it's also going to have one of your favorite things in it, which is bourbon. So I'm super excited. It's going to be really pretty because we're going to rim the glass with some pumpkin spice and cane sugar. And so that's going to make it even more beautiful. But this is going to be special because it has 3 teaspoons of pumpkin puree in it. Now, before you freak out, see, I've seen that look. Don't freak out on me because it actually is going to go really well because we're going to use 3 tablespoons of apple cider. If you don't want it too sweet, go ahead and just do 2 tablespoons of apple cider and 1 tablespoon of water, but we're going to do it all because it's going to emulsify with the pumpkin puree and it's going to make it actually really nice and give it a very like wholesome mouthfeel. Trust me.
Okay.
And the way we're going to cut that super pumpkin-y taste that it might not be your favorite because it's very pumpkin-y since it's pureed is we're going to use 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And then of course, as much bourbon as you want. Now, the original recipe calls for 1.5 ounces. We're going to do like 2 to 2.5 ounces because that's just how we roll at Drink the Movies. And then a dash of orange bitters. So you're going to put all of that stuff in a shaker. You're going to shake it up really nice. It's got to be very, very cold because you want that emulsification to happen between the maple syrup and the pumpkin puree and the apple cider. Okay. And the bourbon, of course. And then you're just going to put it in your rimmed glass and you're going to drink it. And it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to serve this to you. If you do come over and have some of my son's candy, which you should do because I need him to not eat it all. So please do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that sounds delicious. It would be well worth trading a couple packets of candy corn for that if you're into that candy swap sort of game as we all were when we were kids to make sure you get the best stuff. And this sounds delicious. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I am looking forward to trick-or-treating. I always like doing it, buying the bag of candy. You have to play it right? You have to get the bag of candy that you like in case kids don't take it all. So that way all your leftovers is good for you. That's why I'm going with the fun size Milky Way. I'll probably do some of the Reese cups. That'll be delicious. So mix up one of these Halloween night cocktails. Let us know what Halloween night cocktail you're going to be having. And you can do that because we've got a couple of new places for you to connect with us. We recently started a Discord server. So you can come on there, chat all things movies and cocktails and TV shows, everything. Just a lot of fun there. So check the link in the description for that Discord server. And you can join our newly launched, we talked a little bit about it in the lobby bar this week, but our Patreon. We have a Patreon now, Michaela. It's very exciting. Going to be doing a lot of bonus stuff on there, bonus episodes, bonus cocktails, hangouts, all sorts of stuff. So you can get the details for that on our Patreon page. Links in the description, of course, down below. It's patreon.com/drinkthemovies. So go check it out. We hope that you will see something you like there and join us as we make more movies and more cocktails. But, we're not done for today. We have an amazing movie and a really good cocktail to talk about. So why don't we take a quick break and we will be right back to mix up this week's libation.
So this week, we're taking our Chianti, we're taking some fava beans, we're headed to the Baltimore State Forensic Hospital for the criminally insane, and we're going to mix up a really, really dashing cocktail called Hello, Clarice. Which, fun fact, he actually never says that in the film. He says good evening.
That is true. Yeah, he does. He does not say hello, Clarice. That's one of those things that everyone thinks happens, but it definitely doesn't happen. It's kind of like Luke, I'm your father. In Star Wars, he doesn't say that. So yeah, one of those movie things that everyone just remembers incorrectly. But we're going with it anyway. Hello, Clarice. It is a classic movie line that never happened, but it is a classic drink, and we're going to be drinking it today. It comes from Cointreau.com, as all good things tend to do. And this one, of course, is going to include some Cointreau. So let me run through this recipe here for everyone real quick, and then Michaela's going to talk to you about how we put it together. But you're going to need 3/4 of an ounce of Cointreau, 1.5 ounces of rye whiskey, 3/4 of an ounce of freshly squeezed lemon juice, a dash or so of Angostura or aromatic bitters, and then to top it off, you're going to use a 1/2 ounce of your Chianti to float on top and give it this really cool effect. And it just changes the taste of the drink a little bit.
It does. Now, a word about the rye whiskey that we use. We used a really nice rye whiskey. You don't have to. It was also very high proof.
Yes.
So I think in the future, if you're going to do this and you want to get the best bang for your buck, don't do what we did. Get something that's maybe medium proof.
Yeah, it's like a barrel strength rye whiskey, just because that's kind of what we had left around to use. I would definitely not do that. I would, recommend doing something like a bullet rye or something like that, kind of middle of the road that you're going to want to use in a cocktail, especially if you're putting it up with something like Cointreau, which is its own very strong flavor. You definitely don't want to use something, super high end in it like we did. So heed our advice. But, this orange and this rye flavor, it comes together really good.
It sure does. And so what you're going to do is you are going to add the Cointreau, the whiskey, the fresh lemon juice, and the bitters to a shaker with some ice. You're going to shake that sucker, and then you're going to strain it into a very chilled cocktail glass. And then you're going to do this cool bar spoon trick that I'm really horrible at. True. And we took a video of it. Yeah, I'm still learning this piece. But you're going to hold the bar spoon facing up. The back of the bar spoon facing up, so really facing down, I guess is the right way to say it, just above the cocktail surface. And that's where you're going to pour your 1/2 ounce of Chianti. So it just gives it this really beautiful, like blood red look on the top. It's very spooky looking for the scariest movie of all time. And it's actually really delicious. I definitely think that we benefited from doing a second round with a lower proof rye whiskey. I wasn't thinking about that at all, and I should have been when we were deciding which whiskey to use. The important thing is that we use Cointreau from the Cointreau website. Yes. So make sure you use that. But pick any rye whiskey you want. Just it's going to eat up that acidity. It's going to be really acidic if the alcohol level is too high.
For sure. But rye whiskey has this really nice spice to it, and yeah, it really pairs well with that Cointreau with the orange kind of flavor of that, and the acid from your lemon there. It's really delicious. And then that Chianti just gives it like this kind of like smack of like dryness right on top, which helps to kind of cut through that sweeter orange flavor. Chianti is a really delicious wine. It's fairly inexpensive. You can get just a regular Chianti, but I always go up a level to get like a Chianti Classico, which is you can usually get for like, I don't know, like $5 or $6 more. It's a really perfect wine. It is a perfect food wine. Obviously, it goes really well with Italian food, but definitely get that. It probably goes well with fava beans, I guess. Apparently, that's what Dr. Lecter told us. So I would believe him because he can throw a dinner party for sure. But this drink was pretty good. It looked awesome. So definitely want to give it a try out there.
Yes, you do, because it's amazing. But what is even more amazing is this film. We here at Drink the Movies, we knew the 100th episode was going to be, on one hand, really special for us, but on the other hand, just another day in the life. And it happened to fall right at Halloween. And I thought we should do the scariest film of all time, which oddly enough doesn't have like razor hands
No,
or
correct.
hockey
No razor
masks
hands.
or ghosts.
It does have a face mask of an actual face, which is pretty scary, I will say. But yeah, we were talking about one of the all time classics, one of the greatest films, one of my favorite movies of all time this week. So why don't we take a quick break? We will take our Chianti, we will take our Cointreau, and we will be right back to chat about this week's film, Silence of the Lambs.
You spook easily, Starling?
Not yet, sir.
He's past the others. The last cell. I'll be watching. You'll do fine.
I'll help you catch him, Clary.
Believe me, you don't want Hannibal Lecter inside your head.
Thank you, Clary. Thank you.
Spoiler warning for Silence of the Lambs. If you've not yet seen this film, you should literally stop what you're doing, which is listening to this. You should go right now and get it. It's on like Amazon Prime, and I think it's free. Go watch it. Don't bring any kids to watch it. That's a bad idea. But go watch it because it's amazing and wonderful. And we're going to talk about all the things. We're going to talk about the huge twists and turns at the end. And so there's a ton of spoilers. If you've not yet seen it and you don't want to know all of the amazingness, please do yourself a favor. Go make yourself a Hello Clarice. Go watch this film and then come back. And then we're going to chat about it on our 100th episode.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So if you've not seen it, you've had plenty of time because it is 31 years old, I guess now, released in 1991. It was directed by Jonathan Demme, and it stars Jodie Foster as the young, plucky FBI trainee Clarice Starling, and Sir Anthony Hopkins, as the murderous psychiatrist, Dr. Hannibal Lecter.
And this film did super well. This is one of three, fun fact, you probably know this, Brian. This is one of three that won the top five or the big five, right? So it's won Best Picture, it won Best Director, it won Best Actor, it won Best Actress, it won Best Screenplay. And I think I'm missing something.
and it won Best Film. You were
and
so
it
close.
won Best Film.
You were so close.
Best Picture?
You might have. I don't know for sure.
I don't know. I can't count.
But yeah. This one,
it won all the things.
That's right. Yeah, it definitely won all the things. It was nominated for 7, but it won 5. The big 5: Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress. For sure, there for Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster. So, yeah, really well received. It did lose 2, sound and film editing. But what are you going to do? If you're going to win 5, you want to win the big 5, and that is exactly what it did. Silence of the Lambs was based on a book by Thomas Harris, and it is not the first Dr. Lecter film that we had. Michaela, we had Manhunter, which came out in 1986. That was released on kind of the predecessor novel of Silence of the Lambs, Red Dragon, which we got another film of later, kind of in this more line. But Manhunter in 1986 did not do particularly well.
No, and this they Silence of the Lambs did do very well though, and so they decided to try and milk that for all it was worth and do Hannibal, which is after, which also did not do particularly well in the box office. It had some big names. Anthony Hopkins reprised his role as Hannibal Lecter, but Clarice Starling was Julianne Moore, and I think Jodie Foster saw the writing on the wall there and was like, I don't think this is a good idea, and it was probably a good choice because it did not do particularly well, although it is very terrifying. Basically because Hannibal Lecter is one of the most scariest creatures on Earth. There's only one person scarier than that, is Buffalo Bill, who's the one that they're trying to find.
Absolutely. That is what we're trying to find as we go through the movie. So let's get into the movie a little bit here, and then we'll talk about kind of the legacy of Silence of the Lambs. So this film opens up. It is really nice. It is somewhere outside of Quantico, Virginia. The movie tells us we are running through the woods, and we are coming in kind of on the back side of a girl running through the woods wearing a gray sweatsuit. We're going to find out that this is Clarice Starling, and she is an FBI agent in training.
That's right. And you looking at this, one of the things that I really love about this opening scene is if you're not paying attention or if you haven't seen it before, you might think she's actually running away from something because the score is super haunting. It's very haunting, am totally incredulous as to why it wasn't even nominated for Best Score. Okay, don't understand that at all. Beauty and the Beast nominated for Best Score, and I think that's what won. This totally is the most terrifying score ever. You think she's running away and being chased by someone, and then you realize she's just doing this obstacle course that's in the middle of a forest, and that makes you feel a little better. And then somebody is like, runs after her and says, "Hey, Mr. Crawford wants to see you," and she seems to know who that is. And then she goes through the rest of the forest into this academy that is the FBI academy, and we find out that she's a student, and she's going through all these really crazy places where they're doing gun training and they're loading things, and then they're doing other weapons stuff, and they're doing the like hand-to-hand combat, and she's going through all these places, and she ends up in Jack Crawford's office. Jack Crawford is played by the amazing Scott Glenn, and I love the opening scene, because you really with like 3 lines, because there's maybe 2 sentences between the two of them in the first 2 minutes, you really learn so much about who Clarice Starling is and what she's doing.
Yeah, exactly. It sets it up really well. And like you said, she is going into the building there to meet Jack Crawford. And as she's going in, she goes into Jack Crawford's office there, and she's looking at the kind of pin board, and it has all of these newspaper clippings and photos and things of our serial killer, our antagonist of this film, Buffalo Bill. So she's kind of taking all of this in when Jack Crawford comes in and says, "Clarice, you're a really good student. You can do all of the psychiatric profiling kind of things, and that's who we need, because we need someone to go talk to Dr. Lecter. We're putting together kind of this workbook, profiling serial killers and trying to get inside of their minds. And Dr. Lecter has not been very receptive to helping out any one of us, but maybe you can take a crack at him. And it's not really going to cost us anything if he blows you off too. So you're just a student. So why don't you go down to Baltimore, or up to Baltimore, and see what they've got going on?" And that is what Clarice does. She heads on up to the hospital, and she is going to meet with Dr. Frederick Chilton, who maybe gives her kind of a creepy welcome to a creepy place.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if you've seen the movie and you've read the book, you see some very subtle differences between their relationship. She is a much kinder Clarice Starling, and she is much more amenable to Dr. Chilton in the movie than in the book. Dr. Chilton is played by Anthony Held. He's awesome in this, because you don't like him immediately. At least I didn't. And you grow to really hate him for a lot of other reasons. But yeah, he kind of hits on her in a way that I guess then wouldn't be that annoying, because it was like the 90s, early 90s. But I was still I was like, this is totally unprofessional. What are you doing, dude? And one thing he does do, though, is he's walking her down into what looks like a chamber of death. I don't know how this is a real thing. I've been trying to find more information about where exactly this particular scene was filmed, because it really does look like a dungeon that they're walking down into. And Dr. Chilton is briefing Clarice Starling on what she should and should not do in Dr. Lecter's presence, because Dr. Lecter might seem like a very reserved, polite individual, but he is a psychopath and a complete monster, and he will get inside her head. Now, Frederick Chilton is not the first person to warn her about this. Jack Crawford has also told her, just ask him the questions. If he doesn't answer, just walk away. But the production design in this particular piece is amazing, because she's going down a bunch of stairs. He's like showing her a picture of someone that he completely destroyed, and you don't see the picture, but they explain that, all the things that happened to her, and it's enough to terrify you. And you haven't even seen Hannibal Lecter yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's going down into this dungeon of terror, for sure, is what it looks like you mentioned. And she's going to meet Barney, who's kind of there. He's kind of the the head of security for this wing of the hospital. He's played by Frankie Faison. Super sweet guy. He's really nice. He's like, "You can hang your coat up here. I put a chair out for you. You'll do fine." I love Barney. Barney is the best. But who is not the best? That is Miggs. He says something very inappropriate to our dear Clarice as she's walking by. And Hannibal doesn't take too kindly to that, of course. But, she goes in and they're having their little interaction. You get, kind of this iconic image, right, of Anthony Hopkins standing behind this big, thick, like plexiglass wall. It looks amazing, and she's there. They're having their banter, and just immediately you're seeing why these two won Best Actor and Best Actress, because it's incredible, kind of this back and forth that they have. Really pretty fantastic stuff. And it kind of ends with her asking him kind of clumsily to fill out this form, to which he says no. But then when she's leaving, Miggs does something even more more inappropriate than, just saying something, to which Dr. Lecter takes great offense to. He says, that's unacceptable. I will do this for you, Clarice. If you do something for me, I'm going to help you out. I will throw you a bone. I will help make your career. I will help make Jack Crawford see you for the rising star that you are. But you have to do kind of these things for me, and sort of a quid pro quo, as we're going to get later in the film. But he gives her a tip, and she is off to the races.
That's right. Now, Clarice Starling's pretty smart. She doesn't scare easily, and that's what she at least says at the beginning of this film, is that she really wants to work with Jack Crawford in behavioral sciences when she graduates. So she wants career advancement, and this banter between her and Dr. Lecter it's very intense. Their chemistry, if you will, is absolutely amazing to watch in these really close cut scenes where even through the plexiglass, you get this beautiful view of Clarice Starling, who's looking right at you. And then in the reflection, you see Dr. Lecter's face. And it feels like they don't have this glass between them. And the things that they're saying to each other are pretty intense. I mean, he really sizes her up as, a one generation away from, quote, poor white trash. And, she really has tried to move on. And at first you don't think that she's bothered by that, but as she leaves, you see her really kind of break down at her car before she gets inside, and you have some flashbacks. So let's talk a little bit about who Clarice Starling is, and what we come to find out over the course of the film.
Yeah, that's right. So Clarice was kind of orphaned, I guess it was, and ends up living with her family, and kind of is her ambition then, after leaving her adopted kind of aunt and uncle, to join up with the FBI. And Hannibal Lecter kind of immediately susses this out of her, and he really wants to drag this up because, Dr. Lecter was a psychiatrist. That's what he did. And he's long been the smartest person in the room. And I think that one of the things that's really neat kind of about their characters is that she was kind of emotionally intelligent enough with him to kind of hold his attention. And he says it later in the film as the film's closing, that the world is far more interesting with her in it, which is a really great line. And you see that sort of kind of quote unquote relationship between the two sort of blossoming through the film. And it starts here in this first section where he really is kind of being triumphant in the fact that she's here, because at first he kind of blows her off, right? He's like, oh, he's a trainee to talk to me. And then when she finally starts talking, he's like, oh, okay, and kind of settle into it. And then, like I said, she kind of clumsily asks for this thing, which kind of throws him off. But, he feels a little bit protective of her, I think, almost in a way. Especially when Miggs does what he does. And obviously that's going to cost Miggs later that night, as we find out. So,
yeah. So Dr. Lecter takes no prisoners legitimately. He doesn't hold or keep any mementos of his victims. He just kills them, and when he can, he eats them, which is why they called him Hannibal the Cannibal. And she's not allowed to get anywhere near him. No humans are allowed to get anywhere near him unless he has like the original hockey mask. It's like they saw this film, and then Friday the 13th folks were like, I got a great idea. Let's give that one to Jason. Because he is very powerful with his mouth. But apparently he really did not like the way Miggs handled that whole situation. And so he spoke to him, and Miggs ended up swallowing his own tongue, which sounds, I don't even know how you can do that on your own. But anyway, he did it. And poor Clarice, she gets a call from Jack Crawford with this, and she says, I don't know how to feel about it. And at the end of the day, Hannibal Lecter did this to amuse himself because he didn't think that it was appropriate, what he had done. And it was really gross. And it wasn't, I don't know if it means someone should die. But it gives you the idea of the protectiveness he kind of feels around Clarice Starling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And like I said, he gives her kind of a tip to carry on with this mission. He, wasn't going to give her anything. He kind of ends up relenting and tells her to look into one of his former patients, which is going to lead her to a self-storage facility. This is a bad idea, kids. Even if you are in training for the FBI, especially if you're living in a time where there's no cell phones, don't crawl underneath the self-storage door that's going to just slam shut behind you. That's going to be a bad idea, but she's going to do it anyway because she is willing to do whatever it takes to get to the bottom of this, to get to the bottom of the Buffalo Bill case, and to really get inside of the head of Dr. Lecter. So she goes in there. It's amazing. The set design inside of this little storage area is awesome. There's a car in there, and there's something real creepy in that car.
Yeah, it's like a hearse. There's like a decapitated mannequin in a dress. There's a lot of really interesting, creepy things. And then there's this I don't know, it's a thing. It looks like a jar, and it's got a cover on top of it. She picks that off, and there's a head in the jar, and the head looks real bad. And then you realize upon looking at it,
a head in a jar looks real bad. Correct.
Michaela it always looks
right there.
like it looks stop it. It looks really bad, but you don't realize, I mean, at first it's like, is it all bruised? Like, is the face bruised? Why does it look the way that it looks? And then you realize that it's got a lot of makeup on. There are fake eyelashes on this head. And at least I did. That's where I went. And so, of course, this really starts the relationship between Clarice and Hannibal Lecter, because she has to go back. And she goes back over the course of a few different times to try and talk to Hannibal Lecter. Why did he choose her, and why did he send her on this kind of wild goose chase?
Yeah, she is going back to see him. Dr. Chilton is feeling a little threatened, I think, by Clarice and her ability to talk to Dr. Lecter, because that's not something he's been able to do, being a psychiatrist, I guess, himself. So he's feeling a little bit threatened. She goes back. One of my favorite lines in this, he's kind of talking to her about the way that she felt. And, she takes it as being kind of crass. And she says, that sounds like something that Miggs would say. And he just looks at her and says, not anymore. Because, he made him swallow his own tongue the night before. But I really like this. And we kind of learned that Dr. Lecter is like, I've been in this prison cell for, I remember it was like 8 or 9 years, something like that. He's like, I'm never going to see the outside again. All I really want is to be able to have a window with a tree. And Clarice gets kind of this idea in her head that if she promises him that he can get transferred out of this mental institution, this mental hospital, and put into like a maximum security prison, maybe he could get him into a room with a window. And Dr. Lecter is going to take her bait a little bit. He's meeting her more than halfway. I don't think he really thought that she was going to be able to get him into this other prison. But that's kind of the deal that they make. He agrees to kind of help her with Buffalo Bill, and she's going to agree to try to get him transferred out of here. And yeah, that's kind of where their relationship ends, on the pursuit here of Buffalo Bill for the time being. So, Michaela, let's talk a little bit about Buffalo Bill. We're keeping up with him a little bit throughout this thing.
Yeah. So in the opening sequence, when she goes to meet Jack Crawford for this assignment to go do this questionnaire, she sees a wall. And again, the score is amazing because it's so haunting as the camera's panning along this wall of all of these crime scene photos and different news articles. So, and Buffalo Bill is the name that they've given this serial killer who is active and, alive around this area. And he's so far killed 5 women. We end up finding a 6th during the course of the film, but he's so far, he has abducted them. We don't know much about it other than the forensics, right? So, and he shoots them he keeps them alive for a couple days, then he shoots them, and then what he does is remove certain areas of their skin. Again, not for children, and we're going to get into more of those bad choices later. But you see a lot of the depravity around this serial killer, and Clarice Starling has spent a lot of time, given her past and given the fact that her father was a police officer, like she wants to really help in this way. And so she asks Jack Crawford outright, does this, questionnaire have anything to do with Buffalo Bill? And he's like, no, it doesn't. But come to find out, it actually does. And she's a little upset with Jack Crawford by not being in on it, but Jack was saying that, because he has a long history with Hannibal Lecter, that he would never have succumbed to Clarice's, charms if she had been in on it from the start. And so what we find is that he has an idea of who and what is really driving this behavior that Buffalo Bill has to kill all these women. And so he says, I'll offer you, my insights on, and I want to see the case file, but I want something else in return. And that's why it becomes this really quid pro quo, because not only does he want to see these, the sky and some water and not be in a room that looks like a dungeon out of the Renaissance. Okay. But he also wants to know more about Clarice, which is definitely not ethical. It's definitely not something that you would ever do in the real world. But she seems very desperate. She really wants to help solve this crime. And we also see that it's having very real effects, because every day that they don't find him, he is out scoping another person.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So every day, the stakes are serial killer Buffalo Bill is going to be, doing more damage out in the world, and that's kind of what we see, right? So we see Buffalo Bill, aka Jamie Gum, played by Ted Levine, amazing. But he's in like this van trying to get a couch put into the back of it. He has his arm like in like a sling or in a cast sort of a thing. And he sees a young woman, Catherine Martin, played by Brooke Smith, kind of walking through the parking lot there of this apartment complex, and asks her for help. And she does. She is a good Samaritan. She is going to help Mr. Gum with this problem. But that is the problem with serial killers, is that they prey on people who are being too nice to them. Michaela, you got to be careful out there. Be careful.
Got to be careful out there. Yep, it's very much a Ted Bundy thing. He has like a moving van, and he looks like he has his arm in a sling, and he's trying to move a couch. And, she's a good person. She sees that, and she is got groceries in her hand. She's ready to go feed her cat, and she's like, oh, would you like some help? And that is the worst thing, because of course she does help him. She gets into the van with a couch in between the two of them, so she can't get away. And he, of course, subdues her, and is very excited by the fact that she fits the bill, right? She's a plus size person. He does this. After he punches her, I guess she becomes unconscious, and he kind of rolls her over, and you think you're about to see a really awful sexual assault. Luckily, you don't see that. You see something almost as bad, though, because he takes some scissors and he cuts the back of her shirt, and he's all excited because he's looking at her bare skin, and that is never a good sign of a
Nope.
thing to happen. And so, he leaves a kind of telltale sign. So when she goes missing, they immediately know that this is a Buffalo Bill victim. They know they don't have a lot of time, but they probably have some time, because for whatever reason, and they don't really understand why, he keeps, Buffalo Bill keeps these people alive for a little while before he shoots them and removes their skin. So they're like, we don't have a lot of time, but we have a little bit of time, and we really need to move on this.
We have a little bit of time. We need to move on this, and we especially need to move on this because Catherine Martin, as the daughter of a senator or something like that, someone very important. So we definitely need to move on this. But like you said, we're getting some clues as to who Buffalo Bill is, what he does, what he's doing to his victims. Because amongst all of kind of this stuff happening, another body washes up in the I think it was the Ohio River. They go to the autopsy. Clarice and Jack Crawford go to this autopsy in this small town. It's really kind of a neat scene, as you have all of the local sheriffs there, and they're gonna kind of clear out and do this autopsy, and they're starting to learn a little bit of things. One of the things that they learn is that there's this crazy looking little moth cocoon stuffed way down in the throat of this poor girl who lost her life, and there was one of those same things back in that head that Clarice found in the storage unit. So it looks like these cases are connected, and Dr. Lecter probably knows more than he's letting on. But there's bad news, though, is that we found out that Clarice's offer to get him out of there, that's no good. But Senator Martin's offer to get him out of there, that one might be good.
That one might be good. Now, Senator Martin's really mad, and I don't blame her at all, because, they're basically lying to this guy who probably knows Buffalo Bill's real name. and telling him that he's going to get to go for, to an island for a week if he's a real good boy. And, she's like, my daughter's about to die. Like, this isn't cool. So, of course, Dr. Chilton has been illegally recording the conversations between
He's so
Clarice
smarmy,
and
that guy.
he's so
smarmy.
nasty. And he doesn't care. This is the part that makes that this is why Anthony Hell did such a great job, because he does not care about finding Catherine Martin alive. All he cares about is making sure his name is in the papers and getting back somehow at Clarice because she didn't want to go out with him, which is gross. So they end up transferring Dr. Lecter to this Tennessee courthouse. I had to look this up. I'm not going to lie, because it looks like an opera house somehow inside. Yeah. I was like, it's beautiful. It's got lots of dark wood and lots of inlays. And I was like, where are they taking him? I'm very confused.
They just have a random cage just set up in the middle of the room.
That's
all
right.
The time. All
That's
the time
right.
In Tennessee.
Just in case your run-of-the-mill cannibal serial killer comes for, I don't know, a meeting with the senator. So what happens in this exchange, though, is that you realize that Hannibal Lecter is really smart, and he is never going to miss an opportunity to maybe try and get out in the first place. So he gets a hold. We don't really see how it happens, but he gets a hold of a pen that Dr. Chilton had somehow. Dr. Chilton's getting all fancy. He's getting a little bit cocky, gets in front of Hannibal, and he's like, I'm going to go be famous, and you're going to go and be in a cell for the rest of your life and whatever. And he gets, I guess somehow in that exchange, Dr. Lecter gets a pen. That's a really bad thing, because now Dr. Lecter can get out. And he does, but not before one final scene, right?
Yeah, and he does get out. Yeah, like you said, he stole that pen somehow. We don't really get to see how he stole the pen, but yeah, they go and they make the prisoner transfer. You get that very iconic picture of, like you said, that like half hockey mask kind of muzzle sort of thing on him. He's on like this dolly. If you are old enough to have watched the Academy Awards when this won all 5 of its Academy Awards, Billy Crystal actually came out in the same thing when he was doing his monologue. So that was pretty great. I always remember that when I see kind of this section. But yeah, he's going to be put into this kind of makeshift prison inside of the courthouse. You really feel bad because the kind of security police officers there seem like they're treating him with a lot of respect, but unfortunately Dr. Lecter is going to do whatever Dr. Lecter needs to do, and that includes killing both of these guys, setting one up strung up into the rafters. Kind of looks like an angel with all the lighting. It looks insane, and the other one is just laying on the floor, we think. But bad news, that's not really one of the police officers. That is Dr. Lecter. So when they wheel him out of there to stick him into the ambulance, Dr. Lecter is able to make his clean escape and get out of there. Yeah, bad news. Bad news for everyone except for Dr. Lecter, I guess.
Yeah, it's the worst. This is probably the biggest twist to me, because you think that Dr. Lecter has somehow been hurt and he's at the top of this elevator shaft, and they try shooting him in the leg. He doesn't move, and you're like, oh no, what? I mean, well, you're sort of like, oh no, because you want him to get away but you also don't want him to hurt all these people. And they think that they've taken the one guy whose face is a mess. He looks like chopped beef. It's real bad. But they get him into a hospital in an ambulance, and turns out that what he did was he just took the dude's face and put it on him, Dr. Lecter. And so he's the one in the ambulance. And it's real gory, and it's real terrifying. And once again, the score is amazing, because you go from that to Ardelia, which is a good friend of Clarice Starling. She's like running down the hallway trying to tell Clarice that Dr. Lecter has escaped, because everybody is now terrified and worried about Clarice. And Clarice takes it very seriously, but she says, he won't come after me. I can't really explain it, but he would consider that rude, which is very true. I mean, Dr. Lecter is a very strange serial killer psychopath. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. They have this very, very odd, intimate relationship. Even after just meeting a couple of times, and yeah, he would think that it's rude, and yeah, he is going to leave her alone. And before he breaks out of this makeshift prison, he gives her back the case file. You get a really kind of chilling thing where he's reaching through the bars, and he kind of brushes his finger over top of hers, which is the only time that they ever actually touch in the film, which is a really neat scene. It's very, very chilling when you see it happen. And she's looking through the case file because he says that everything she needs is right in there. It's been in there this whole time, and no one's been able to figure it out. But luckily for everyone involved, Clarice is going to be able to figure out. Now, Dr. Lecter is given the FBI a name. That was one of the conditions. But that name, not a real name, but it is going to send the FBI on a wild goose chase. But who has the real name? That is Clarice. She goes up to Ohio. She is talking to people. She finds, one of the victims. And as it turns out, Buffalo Bill, aka James Gum, was a seamstress, tailor sort of thing with this girl. That's how he knew his first victim, because chances are you're going to know your victims if you're a serial killer. And they were doing some sewing, and she thinks, while all these poor victims have been having their skin flayed off, that's probably to make a woman suit.
Probably to make a woman suit. And this scene where she goes back to the very first victim, her name was Frederica Bimmel, and she does really just good detective work, right? You see her talk to her father, you see her go into the room, she finds things that are hidden in the room that nobody has seen, like things that as a girl, all the secret hiding places where you're going to have like, diary letters or pictures or something like that. And she comes up with this idea that there's this woman's suit, which sounds really awful, and you hope you never see it. But she calls Jack Crawford, and she's very excited, Clarice is. And Jack Crawford's like, girl, we got it. We know exactly where this guy is. We know his name. You were right. His name's Jamie Gum. And he's up in, I don't know where he is. He's in Baltimore. He's somewhere else. He's 400 miles away from wherever Clarice Starling is. And they're on this big flight. They're like, we'll be there in 45 minutes. We've got his address. Those weird those weird moths, we can track through customs when he ordered some. So we're sure it's the guy. But thanks for your help. We got it from here. And it really kind of leaves you very hollow, because Jack Crawford, while I think he is grateful to her, he doesn't really, it doesn't mean to him what it means to her to go find this person, and that's disappointing. But turns out Jamie Gum, he might have an address way up 400 miles away, but he's actually living in a house that is next on Clarice's list to go and talk to, and that's where things get real bad.
That's right. Yeah. And we know right away when that doorbell rings. It's actually a really great film editing, because as Jack Crawford is pushing the doorbell, you're seeing this kind of alarm bell thing in the basement kind of ringing. So it's cutting back and forth. So you're not really sure who is at whose house, but the door opens and Clarice is standing face to face with Buffalo Bill, only she doesn't know it yet. So they go inside, and then it is tension filled, right? So you have Catherine, who is down in this dugout well in the basement. We've checked in with her a couple of times. Very creepy stuff from Buffalo Bill, shouting at her, making her put lotion on her skin, of course, because we know what's coming for her. Some interactions with the dog. She's, doing her best, pleading her case, trying to get out of there, but to no avail. So when Clarice shows up, it is tension filled, and it ultimately leads kind of with her going down to the basement. And the lights go out. Just this horrifying thing, and then you hear that sound, that most horrible of sound, of the night vision goggles clicking on. Ugh.
Yeah. So we know that Buffalo Bill has night vision earlier in the film when he has these goggles and he's looking at Catherine, he's looking at her movements. He definitely had picked her out earlier before he put together his whole moving stunt. So we know he has them, but gosh, you got to say, when you hear those, I guess, again, the sound editing is just amazing, because everything goes dark. Clarice Starling is very new, right? She's a new FBI agent. She hasn't even gotten her graduation yet, right? She hasn't gotten her permanent badge, but she's remembering all the things that they talk about, where like check your exit, make sure that you're looking at the corners, closing all the doors with the gun. She gets down into this place. It is the scariest place on the planet. Okay, the top of the house didn't look great either. When she's
Top
in
is
the
pretty
front,
scary too.
it's really gross. She goes into the living room and there's like moths everywhere, and that's when she knows she's found him. She's found him. It's in the right place. Ted Levine has got this weird kind of vocal cadence that is very strange. He can't quite use consonants the same way as everybody else. I don't really know if that was by design or not, but it's terrifying. Then she goes down in this basement. There is literally like an empty well, like a ring, like a well from the Ring without any water. Catherine's in it. There are fingernails of other people hanging in the walls because no one can climb out of there. She's terrified. And of course, what does the first thing Clarice say? You're safe. Catherine Martin, you're safe.
you're safe. I'll be right back. Yeah, they start yelling at each other. And,
as you're watching that, you're like, you're anything but safe, girlfriend. And then of course the lights go out. Oh,
yeah, you are far away from safe. Yeah, the lights go out, the night vision goggles kick in, and you see Clarice just it's so amazing. Jodie Foster, she looks so genuinely terrified in this moment, but luckily for her, Buffalo Bill has a revolver, so when that clicks back, she kind of is alerted to his presence. She just turns around and starts shooting. She didn't shoot enough. She should have kept reloading the gun and shooting at him. That's probably what should have happened, but she didn't. But luckily, she's able to get the drop on him, I guess, even in the dark and in the circumstances. And it's really pretty cool because when she shoots, it shoots out one of the windows, then this light starts streaming in. It looks absolutely gorgeous, kind of this section. And Catherine is saved. Clarice is saved and able to go on, and then kind of the film wraps up then with her getting her, I don't know, FBI diploma or whatever. She finishes her FBI training. So yeah, she gets her actual badge to be an FBI agent. But that's not going to quite end the film until we get one last phone call from a friend who has made it down to the Bahamas because he's meeting someone for dinner.
Yeah, and that someone is Dr. Frederick Chilton, who has decided, I guess, it's only been, I don't know how long it's been. Because Dr. Lecter's hair is blonde, so he's had enough time to at least get a dye job. I'm not sure. But it's not been that long. And Dr. Chilton is like, I'm out. I'm going to go on vacation. And he's rude then. Like he's talking to people super rudely. Anyway, but Dr. Lecter calls Clarice and he has this really great way of letting her know that he's going to be looking after her, but that he's not going to come for her because, like you said, the world is more interesting with you in it. And it's as close to I love you as I think we're going to get, at least until the next film, which was disappointing. But this relationship between the two of them really kind of solidifies because, he says, I really hope that you don't come looking for me. And she says, I can't make that promise. And then he kind of hangs up on her. And of course, the music starts. She's calling his name into the phone, and he is following this group of people on this very open road in the Bahamas, following Dr. Chilton. And Dr. Chilton's not going to just swallow his own tongue. It's going to be much worse for him.
It is going to be much worse for him for sure. And that is how the story ends. I guess justice prevails, at least in the case of Buffalo Bill, but not necessarily in the case of Dr. Hannibal Lecter. And like you said, Michaela, this spawned a lot more stuff. So we had Red Dragon came out, which is kind of the prequel story to that. And then Hannibal and Hannibal Rising both came out after. Now Hannibal Rising actually was written by Thomas Harris. So that was the only one of those that he actually wrote. The rest were just kind of based on his work. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And we got 2 television shows that spawned out of this. There was a Clarice TV show, which I didn't even know about until earlier today when I was looking up stuff for my notes here. So that's interesting. Might have to go back and watch that. Not for sure, but something I'm definitely going to go back and watch because it's something that everyone should watch. And that is Hannibal. Starring Mads Mikkelsen as Dr. Lecter. It is the creepiest, grossest thing you've ever seen that's been on network television. I don't even know how they got it on to be on network television. That's pretty crazy. But Hannibal, the TV show, really good.
It is really good, I will say. It's the best thing that came out of this, other than this film, in my opinion. Although I haven't seen Hannibal Rising. I totally forgot about that. I'm kind of a Hannibal fan, so I've watched all of these, and I agree that this is the best. But hey, gosh, that TV show, it again, not for children. Not for kids. It's a bad idea.
Probably
Don't do
probably
that.
not for anyone, to be honest. Not for
Right.
anyone, really.
And if you're watching it and you're totally not grossed out or upset, something's probably a little wrong with you, and that's okay. Yeah, this film, I mean, there's so many things. Let's get into it. So when did you watch this the first time? What was your reaction seeing it now?
Yeah,
Tell me all the
so
things.
yeah, so this came out in 1991, early. So we would have been like 9 years old when this came out, and I remember it being, I don't know if it was a big deal, but it made kind of a big splash because it came out right before Oscars, and then obviously it won all the Oscars. I mentioned, Billy Crystal kind of coming out because he always did like that like monologue song, and that was part of it, kind of incorporated. So it was something that I wanted to see, but my parents, very rightly so, said no. You're only 9. That is a bad idea. Don't watch this. That's terrible. So I don't know exactly when the first time I would have seen it. It would have been on some sort of home rental, probably when I got close. I don't know, probably like freshman-ish, sophomore-ish year of high school, maybe something like that, like 15, 16 years old. I would guess. I'm not 100% sure on when I saw it the first time, but I do know that after seeing it the first time, this immediately became one of my favorite movies of all time. It is gorgeous. The sound is gorgeous. The sound design is gorgeous. The way that it looks is gorgeous. And the acting is, of course, gorgeous. So it is definitely on my Halloween rotation. I watch this every year. So I've probably seen it, I don't know, 25, 30 times now at this point, because literally this is one of those things. It's like a Christmas movie. We watch Muppet Christmas Carol every year. Watch A Silence of the Lambs every year, come Halloween time. But what about you? You were a little looser, playing a little more fast and loose with your first time watching things that you shouldn't be watching.
Dad,
so.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna out him again. We've talked a lot about movies that I was probably too young to watch this month because we're in Halloween month. But I definitely watched this in 4th or 5th grade. That would mean I was 9 or 10 years old, and that's too young. That's too young. That's too young to see this film. I will say, but I will say my dad was really cool about it because he let me watch all of it, and I swear it was one of the best lessons learned was that scene with where Buffalo Bill ends up capturing Catherine Martin, because I remember very vividly he looked at me and he said, "Do not ever be polite to people that you don't like. You can walk away. That person will be okay. Like, do not get sucked into that, because that is how bad people prey on the goodness of others. It is the most basic kind of idea that, and we as women, as a woman, we're told, hey, you should dance with everybody you're asked to in the dance community. You should, if someone makes you uncomfortable, you should give them the benefit of the doubt. Screw that. That is not true. We don't have to be polite to anybody. We can walk away. We don't have to be rude, but we can just walk away. We don't have to deal with that just because, and not being polite and, walking away does not make us a bad person. And I think that was one of the best lessons I ever learned. And I learned it because of this film, and I learned it at 9 years old. The other thing I learned was, I really probably should have been in the FBI, because Clarice's job is just like the coolest thing ever. And I definitely never learned to sew after this. But I watched this a lot. And I think it's even scarier now. I mean, last night I watched this to prepare for the podcast, and I literally had to turn all the lights on in my house and walk in every room before going to bed. That's never happened before. It's never happened when I've watched a Jason film or a Freddy film or any of those slasher movies, but I definitely did it this time. And I've seen this film before. So that is the true test, I think, to an ultimate horror film, because this is something that is real. And unfortunately, serial killers do exist, and it still happens. And really depraved stuff all the time. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's such a, resides in like your head so psychologically, and like it's one of those things that you worry about the people that worked on the project, whether they were okay. And the people that worked on this project went on to have exceptional careers. Obviously, Anthony Hopkins gets gets the bulk of the praise for this, but Jodie Foster, I think, is absolutely incredible in this movie. I mean, she won Best Actress, but it was almost like an afterthought. Like, oh well, of course Anthony Hopkins is going to win, but all the rest of you, were just there because of Anthony Hopkins. But I don't think that's true at all. And I especially, kind of watching it more critically, I guess this week as we prepared, I'm like, Jodie Foster is exceptional at playing kind of this, really nuanced, really kind of courageous but young, kind of FBI wannabe agent kind of thing, and just kind of the fear and the emotions that she plays on, especially in that last part, is like visceral. She is fantastic, and definitely you win 5 Academy Awards. That's pretty good. But I do think there are some snubs. You mentioned it a couple times. The music, Howard Shore, definitely should have at least been nominated for this. John Williams is the greatest. He's the all-time greatest for sure. He got nominated for the music for JFK. Who knows about that? No one. But this music is incredible. Howard Shore, you got stiffed right there. And I will say this one was a little bit more competitive, but Ted Levine definitely needed to be nominated for supporting actor. Jack Palance won it that year for City Slickers. But Ted Levine is amazing because as great as Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster were, if the character of Buffalo Bill doesn't work, this whole thing falls apart. He has to be believable enough. And he was believable because I remember watching a kind of behind the scenes documentary. And Ted Levine was talking, as, he's acting with Brooke Smith, who played Catherine Martin, who's down in this well. And he was so concerned that she was going to be traumatized and upset and afraid of him. Like they would yell cut and he would just profusely just start apologizing to her for all the things that he had to say and do and the position that he was in. And that kind of always stuck with me. He got snubbed for sure. Had to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think he is one of the most chilling. He's one of the most chilling characters ever because, and they talk about it a lot in their interactions between Clarice and Dr. Lecter. He had been systematically abused. That was the assertion that Dr. Lecter made. He was very, he didn't really know who he was. He'd been in a relationship. The guy who's the head guy in the the person whose head we found at the self-storage, he'd been in a relationship with him. And that didn't make him happy. Like there was so much that you could see in his face when he's having these conversations. And when Catherine Martin is begging to I just want to talk to my mom. I just want to go home. And he's crying, but he's also like, I have to do this because I need to make my suit of women. And I mean, he was amazing. And there's a scene that we haven't talked about where he actually is taking pictures of himself. And the scene was not actually supposed to be in the film, but it's in the book. And Ted Levine was like, we need that scene. And it's hard to watch because he's naked and he's kind of dancing around and he's got half the suit on him. And I'm just going to leave it at that. If you've seen it, which we told you should watch this, you know what I'm talking about. But that scene is really special because it really does help you see the humanity behind the serial killer, which I think is important. He just does such a good job. And I'm really sad that he wasn't nominated. I mean, I think almost everybody in this film was snubbed as a performer because they all did. Scott Glenn was really wonderful as Jack Crawford. And there's a whole backstory that you don't know about in the movie that happens in the book. And it's just super well done. And there's so many nuances. We could talk for as long as the movie is about all the bits and pieces of this film that really make it so special. But yeah, it is absolutely probably my favorite horror movie. I call it a horror film because it's probably the scariest movie I've ever seen. And yet I still watch it and still get scared. So
yeah,
go.
For sure. It never gets less scary for sure. So so if you've never seen Silence of the Lambs, and if you have listened to us this far in, you've definitely seen it, I'm assuming. But if you haven't watched it this year or recently, go back and give it a rewatch because it is just as amazing as it ever has been. So definitely do that. And while you're watching it, make yourself up a Hello Clarice because it's delicious and it is really pretty, and it definitely kind of plays on those tones, uses that Chianti just like Dr. Lecter did. So if you mix one of those up, send us a picture. We want to see it. And take a look at pictures of ours. You can do that on our Instagram and Twitter. It's at Drink the Movies, and on Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to see episode recaps, pictures of ours, videos of ours, all that stuff, information about the new Patreon, you can do that on our website, which is www.drinkthemovies.com and patreon.com/drinkthemovies. So we appreciate everyone that goes and checks that out. And we appreciate everyone who has been along with us for 100 episodes now, Michaela. 100 times we've mixed up a cocktail and talked about a movie. Thank you to everyone who has joined us, for one episode or all 100 episodes.
That's right. I'm very humbled, actually, that we did this. I don't know, 10 years ago when someone was like, you should make a podcast about movies. And I was like, no one wants to listen to me talk about movies and waffle on about stuff that is in my head. And I'm so glad that you've been with me on this journey, Brian.
Oh,
you've been amazing. Just so everybody knows, and I know I will say this till my death, but Brian does all the things. I just kind of show up. So the backbone of this whole thing is, and will continue to be, Brian. And we could not do this without you. So I'm so grateful. It truly is a dream come true for me. I'm not going to get emotional, but 100 episodes in and you're still willing to do it. And I'm just so grateful. And we've had the best week ever of listenership. I don't know what is going on in the world, but it truly is. This is the best job ever.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for those kind words. And thank you, everyone who goes by their favorite podcast player and leaves us a review. Michaela, where should they be doing that?
You should be doing that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, New Pods, Good Pods, Stitcher, Patreon, all the things.
whatever pods. Yeah, just wherever you can find us on your podcast player. Go there, subscribe, and if you can leave us a review, please do that because it helps get Drink the Movies out there. Somehow, I don't know the science behind it, but it does seem to help. So definitely appreciate anyone who takes the time to do that. And again, yes, thank you for joining us for these last 100 episodes. Here is a cheers to 100 more and to some more good movies. So Michaela, we've talked about a lot of scary movies now. What I need to do is I need to go find a happy place, have some joy, have some sunshine, eat some of this Halloween candy, and finish up my Hello Clarice. And we're going to have to go and find ourselves some sort of apple, because how about them apples and how about Good Will Hunting? So we're going to do that, and we will talk to everyone next time on
Drink
the Movies.
Dr. Lecter.
Dr. Lecter.
100 episodes. You're still not tired of me trying to say a line at the end of every show.
That's true. 100 times, 100 more.
100 times. At least 100 more.
At least.